Welcome back to another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement, where I get to sit down and talk with Trent from the YouTube channel Miscast. He has easily broken the mold when it comes to YouTube and is producing some of my most favorite content these days. Stick around, we have a great chat. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, look, hopefully everything will be fine this time round. I'm a safe bet. Don't worry.
Right? I would agree. You are a safe bet. Not saying that you probably can't have like a little bit of edge and or have opinions that are you know, not unpopular, but like I think that you look at the YouTube game very differently. And it's something that as I've gotten deeper into this, I find myself being so excited to watch your videos because I never know what you're gonna do. Trent, you have found magic. You have found the vein of gold in the mountain, and I want you to keep on fucking mining it. I want you to keep on going there, man.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you. That's lovely.
For everybody who's just joining us, have not ever sat down and watched one of Trent Miscast's videos, I'm gonna just tell you right now, find the Nurgle Diaries. Start at episode 1, and what is there, 7 episodes now of that? 8?
8 now. Yeah.
They are. It's easily broken the way I've thought about content creation on.
That's too kind. That's too kind.
Well, you've been doing YouTube now off and on for about 4 years. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's been pretty irregular up to recently, just whenever I felt like it.
Right.
But now I have all the time in the world. So,
so what was the change? Because like, it seems like channels like yours, because even though like maybe I bounced off of your early content, because like another terrain building channel was not really what I was looking for at the time. It always had a level of professionalism and thought put behind it. So what made you realize that you needed to take this channel in a different direction? Because it's almost like a light switch went on and you're like, aha, that there had to have been an aha moment.
yeah, I mean, the focus was definitely tutorial focused at the start. And that was, at the time, my intention was just to pass on like the knowledge that people at my clubs and stuff had taught me, like all very basic stuff. Like all my terrain is covered in PVA glue and sand because that's what our terrain was like at our club.
Right.
So, which is awesome. I love it, but there was a point where it was like I was making videos and I realized that it was starting to repeat like ideas or techniques and stuff like that. And in every video, the idea was that I was trying to teach at least 2 new things in every video. So new techniques. But eventually, with this sort of stuff, you can only go so far. Like everything is built on a foundation of simple ideas, right? And then you get into like scale modeling and then more expensive tools and all that sort of stuff. And I want to use all that. Like I want to push my craft further. But as soon as you start doing that sort of tutorial thing, that you're cutting people out. So the shift was, it's like I want to teach people through me actually creating what I want to make rather than what I think people can make. If that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. You and I think you did that, and you've had a lot of really cool, like it's almost like, when you called it the Nurgle Diaries, that's exactly what it is. It feels so personal, and it feels
Sure.
like you're sharing a part of you that 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 maybe you wouldn't have done before. It's like, this is something special. This means something to me, and I hope that it can relate to you. And there is things to glean. There is knowledge based there that you are showing. It's not all
Sure.
just like you dreaming, but your dream has like translated to some of the most fun videos I've watched in a long time. It's really cool, like, to see that shift.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of that is like my hobby. But before there were clubs and stuff in my town where I had friends in the hobby, like I was just growing up on forums, like, 11, 12, 13. It was just like I was following all like the work in progress diaries on forums and stuff, learning through that, being inspired by crazy things that, people. I think there comes a point where you've been in the hobby so long, you just start making really weird stuff or pushing things really far.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember being a kid and seeing that and being like, whoa, this is so cool. I hope one day I can do that. But now, forums are totally dead. So like this is the new way, I think, is video.
Yeah, it's like the video and Discord are like the new forums, and like I bounced off of forum culture pretty hard, just because like in the punk scene and the metal scene out west where I grew up in Oregon, it was so toxic, and I've always been way more altruistic in my ideas and my time. I want to see people succeed. I want to see people try things. And when you're in in communities where they're like, this is our territory, and it felt like all the forums were that. And so like when I got out of music, even though forums were still a huge thing, I avoided literally all forums because of that.
Sure. Yeah. I think like what's sort of different, I think, in my club environment is like a lot of the players share like an interest in the same game. So it's like you have 40k players playing D&D or Warhammer Fantasy or AOS or all that sort of stuff. And I think for me that's like a really normal thing, but when I go to places on the internet, it's like we're the 40k guys, we're the D&D people.
Yeah.
So like for this sort of, it was like, how do I just combine all my interests, all my favorite miniature lines, all my stuff that I've learned,
Sure.
and sort of broke down a bit, like like a Nurgling can be riding a mimic, who cares,
Yeah.
that's fun to me,
Well, and those AOS books are so much more D&D inspired. Like when you go back and
Sure.
read them, and actually, I mean, all of the Warhammer Fantasy stuff is, at its core, like kind of like a Tolkien lore thing. So they feel like you should be able to have more fun in the world. They don't need to be as grim, dark, and serious.
Yeah, totally. Especially like all that old stuff, there is such a balance where it's like everything has so much humor behind it, but a lot of it is also quite dark. And you have silly ideas executed in really dark art styles and stuff like that. It's totally my jam,
Yeah.
that balance. And when I'm playing too, like I want to be having a laugh with my opponent as well. Like when, miscasts happen, things explode, things die that you don't expect. That's part of the, narrative. Like that's what I love.
Yeah.
And that's another D&D type thing, that mentality, I think.
Right. Well, and like I think
It
that
happens.
those are the best parts. Like I was just talking with Ben Cantor, and he and I both agreed that our memory of the war games that we played is more rosy than the actual war games, but we can still remember the moments of like, oh, that was really cool when that happened, even though that maybe we weren't having the most fun at the time. And I think for me, why I bounce off of like 40k, even though like that's what all my friends play, so I have like 5 40k armies. I may talk shit, but like I still play it. It's
Yeah.
like the moments that are cool when they happen, they're really fun, but like the level of chaos, it's actually way lower. And and I was hoping some of that would be like we would add a little bit more of that in 9th edition, and I don't think it's there the same way. That AOS because every army is so different, they have their own rules that are just wild, and like Slaanesh can just basically like hurt me. I'm just gonna start summoning things because you're hurting me. Like there's something about that chaos where you're not exactly sure how each army's going to play, and each person's going to play it very differently. And that to me is really inspiring.
Yeah, I think like I'm totally like a Warhammer fantasy guy. Like
Sure.
I love it. Everything's on square bases.
I was just
going to
say, you're the square base guy, man. You're still doing square bases.
Yeah, but like as much of flack that Age of Sigmar gets, like I hang shit on it all the time, but at the same time, it's also incredibly refreshing to just have a whole new world that Games Workshop can explore and try things out and do weird combinations with, and just like I think from a creative perspective, that's really exciting for me to be able to be like, this exists. There's not much about it. I can kit bash and I can come up with my own lore and stories, and you don't have 20 nerds being like, oh, that's not right. You can't do that. It's like it doesn't exist yet.
Well, I think that's the inspiring thing about you, because like another one of my huge issues right now in the modern wargaming world, besides the fact that like literally we can't play, or we shouldn't play. Like really, if we want to get through this COVID thing, we need to not be so cavalier with how we spend our free time. Is like the cost aspect. I'm looking at like the new Necron stuff, and I'm like, that's $170. I bought one of these last year for $30. Like, what just happened to the price of some of these models? And then when I look at yours, like, wow, building supplies are expensive, and like investing into the creative aspect of building an army, you have kind of like proven to me that maybe I need to stop being so puritanical about the models on the table, because I'm not going to big tournaments to play, and I could totally build a pyramid. I could build a monolith.
But like if you go to a lot of the bigger tournaments, you see photos from a lot of the bigger tournaments, the armies are crazy silly. Like a lot of those players have a great time. Like not the Games Workshop sanctioned stuff, but like these big tournaments with tournament players, which are they're probably so sick of the game that they're playing. They're just trying to get any kick of out of the game that they can. They feel the craziest, most abstract stuff, or like a Barbie doll or a Transformer or a My Little Pony or something like that. But that culture is totally there. So it's like, I think even in the competitive space, like that scene is still there. But like, I mean, I definitely have it easy as like wanting to do a Nurgle army, because it's like,
all bets are out.
The possibilities. Yeah. And like and everything still sort of looks right, and when you put it all together, it looks right. But I know, like, as an Australian, we get hit with price rises so often, like yearly. And we pay a lot more, like, for the same sort of stuff, like that Mega Gargant thing that came out. So excited about it, and I'm like, I'm talking to my US friends, like, oh, it's so expensive though, and I'm like, oh, how much could it be? I'm like, whoa, that's expensive.
Yeah. The Gargant was actually one that I was hoping to see you make your own Gargant, because I look at those things, and while I'm not trying to knock a company for making their money. I get it. But I also really like collecting Gundams, which are $30 a piece. I don't need glue. They're amazing. And I'm just like, it feels like Games Workshop is missing a lot of opportunities to bring new people in to help reduce the cost of the models, because like there's definitely a supply and demand thing, and as they're growing in their new location, I think there's still a lot of growing pains happening there, which is why there's like restrictions on how many models stores get, and that's really hard to be like a new player and get that like fear of missing out, the FOMO hitting them really hard and realizing that they're probably not going to get a chance to do these things for a while. Like it feels like they're accidentally on purpose making it harder for new people getting into the hobby. And that's why when I see you doing it, it makes me realize that Games Workshop isn't the hobby. We can play in their world, but like creativity is the hobby, and that is something that I think gets lost. I think it gets lost in translation of, chasing the meta rules, and we forget to have a good time with it. And so thank you for like your channel is a constant reminder that this is our happy space. This should be the thing that we do. And prices be damned, I'm going to fucking make an unclean one that's going to be amazing and unique. I'm going to make a weird house on the top of an alien, and it's going to be fantastic. Like you've done some things recently that I'm just like, I definitely, I need to take more time to enjoy the more holistic aspects of this hobby, because just chasing Games Workshop, I think, is it's the road of darkness as far as like your emotions go.
Sure. I mean, like, in some ways I can certainly justify some of the prices. I mean, like, as um as someone that doesn't have that much expendable income, it's like if I really wanted that mega bargain, like I would save for it. Like I would save my money,
Right.
I'd buy it. But for me, it's like the thing that turned me off the kit was that it's beautiful, amazing model, but it is so rigid with what you can make with it. And I think that's the direction that I'm slowly falling out of love with Games Workshop stuff. Models are beautiful, but they become harder and harder to hack up with each release or
They
turn into
do.
something new. Which is fine. Like big sculptures are beautiful and stuff, but like as someone that finds so much joy in just converting and sculpting and making things ugly, it's a little bit annoying. But like, I mean, it's a totally like a boundary that you can get over and stuff. But like, if you pick up an old, Empire kit and you're like, whoa, there are some possibilities here. But when you pick up one of the new kits, you're like, how am I going to work around this? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
I'm so new to the hobby, like that culture of making the army your own, to me, really only lives in the bases, because I don't think about and, paint scheme and stuff like that. Like I don't think about changing my models up, especially like my favorite Games Workshop property is actually the Warhammer Underworld stuff, which is all push fit models. I love the game.
They look great.
They look so cool, and I'm like, why would I change this? This is amazing.
Yeah.
And they're a joy to paint up. So it's just like, to me, I'm like, give me a monopose. It's totally fine.
Sure.
But I've seen people in shops, and I've been judgmental and probably cruel when they're like, I'm not going to play this game anymore because I can't get my multi-pose models, and I'm like, did you even like playing the game before, or was it just a model thing? Like it, like really, like where is the fandom lie? And I think in the war game world, the hobby is actually better than the game most of the time. I think I think that if you actually talk to people, the hobby is the best part of the game.
Sure. I think like if you're a seasoned converter, if you've had like been hacking up your own stuff for a while, you're gonna have no problem with anything that Games Workshop throws at you. You've got the tools, you've got the know-how. But I do miss that sort of conversion culture that was in White Dwarf magazines and all that sort of stuff. You have beginner tutorials of like, this is a head swab. This is, this is something cool that you can make your hero out of.
Right.
Or, and as a beginner, that's harder to get into because you don't look at the kit and you go, oh, look at the possibilities. You go, this is beautiful. And I just need to make it more beautiful with my paint.
Right.
Yeah. But like I'm so impressed by every new Games Workshop release. Like I want them all, and I want to, you know, uh, they're all like a new canvas, really, to hack up and turn into something new. But that's how I enjoy the hobby. So,
Right, right.
and I've done my time doing like clean armies. I like a total high elf, wood elf guy, painting whites, painting trims. Lots of layers, lots of elven skin. But this Nurgle army was totally like, I don't want to paint another clean straight line again, and I'm gonna make an army around that.
Uh,
So
I love watching as you are like, I'm gonna sculpt this, and you just like have these tools that you've made, and you're just kind of like jabbing it. Yeah, it's like
yeah,
so you're putting chaos into it. You're putting all the organic nature of whatever you're like thinking of, and you can tell that like there's an aspect of like you wonder if Jackson Pollock making his controlled chaos paintings was the same thing of just like oh yeah, I'm just doing this thing and it's so much fun, like,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
hope it is, because like um it there's this like aspect that like I think we all think that we should suffer for our art, and
sure.
you actually are doing something extremely artistic, and you don't sound like you're suffering at all. You sound
No,
like you are having
fuck
the
no,
time of
no.
your life.
That's and that is like ingrained in our hobby too. That's like the idea that it's like you have to put in the time. If you want that army, you have to sit down and you have to paint like shoulder after shoulder after shoulder, lens after lens after lens. That's totally our hobbies culture that was taught to me. Like I've taught other people that way. um, but I think for me, a lot of the hobby was like, I need an army that's suited to how I want to enjoy the hobby. And if I wanted to paint another army now, like I might choose Necrons because like that's easy to paint. I can paint it messily and I can turn it into something, crazy or grim, or cover it in dirt and mud and soot, or create a crazy story for it. But that's because like that's catering for what I know I'm going to enjoy.
Right.
Uh, Not everyone has that luxury. Like they pick up an army and they go like, "This is going to be the best thing ever," because it's like I know that I've bought lots of models before and gone like, "This is going to be the best thing ever. I'm going to make the best thing I've ever made." But so much of that is like I like the idea of me finishing that army and being able to say, "Look what I did," rather
Right.
than me enjoying the actual process.
Right.
Um, yeah.
I mean,
Sorry,
I
that was a bit of an info dump.
no, but I've never actually really, is an army ever truly finished? Like, is that a thing?
Sure.
Because like I can't ever see an end to any of my armies. I can only see like future possibilities. And so like I always start them and I build them. I love the building process. I love sitting there and like gluing my fingers together and just getting weird and messy with it. But like I never feel like I've got like the perfect army. It's always like,
Sure.
no, I could take a couple more Skitarii and we could get weird with it. These
Mhm.
guys have been out in the desert longer than the rest, and like I kind
Yeah.
of like to look at like maybe the more diorama aspect of like, if I am going to put the time into each piece, I don't want to just batch paint. Like I want it to be
Mhm.
something where this one little guy actually has more character than the rest. And so like and
Sure.
maybe it's because games aren't possible right now, but I am really bouncing off the idea of batch. Like I'm just like, no, no, it
Sure.
doesn't work for me right now.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think at its core, I think what I want to teach more is just like the hobby is what you make it, and it's what you want it to be. Because um I don't know, like I don't know, a few years ago there was I think there was a very I think honestly the biggest change is like the 28 miniature community. They've had a massive impact on what I'm doing, all my friends are doing. even like my club scene, all that sort of stuff, or what you can do. If I share like the 28 mags to my club, they're like, oh my God, and everyone starts converting their stuff. That's the whole new culture, isn't it?
Well,
Like,
yeah, and like the Turnip 28 movement is something that
yeah,
like
yeah.
I had never seen before a couple weeks ago, and now I'm like, I really want to do something with this. I want to get weird with a model, and
Mhm.
I've never been like one to get that weird, and I'm like, this is covered in mud with like grass tufts growing out of people's heads. Like, this is
Yeah,
awesome. I love this. Like, I
yeah.
think I could live right at home here.
It's incredible, and it's so exciting. I think it's probably the most exciting thing that's happened in the hobby since I've been in it, because um, I've seen like on forums and stuff people trying something different. I've seen like Zinch armies sculpted out of ping pong balls and green stuff, and then being shut down by the community because it's like, this doesn't fly. Like, this is a disgrace to the hobby, all that sort of stuff. But now the culture is totally, you know, make it work, make it your own. And I think that's so exciting. And I got to pass that on as much as I can, because that's what the magazine's done for me and my club. I played a fantasy game against my friend who's collecting a Zinch army, and all his models are all hand sculpted with clay, and like all the flyers, all that sort of stuff. And it's so much fun. And like, I get excited because he's excited about his army. I'm excited about my army, and it's the best games that we've played. Like, he might not be the best sculptor. It's his first time doing it. My stuff also, it's the same. But at the end of the day, we're like, yeah, bring
And
it on.
I mean, and that's like, you know, it's so special, and that's a special gift to give to us as viewers. Is like, it's really freeing, that idea of, I've created something like that exists in this world, because like, Games Workshop is always just going to keep on adding stuff to their world. Eventually they'll take things back, and then they'll bring old things that were, like, I think what the um in 40K, the lizard guys that are also in the Tau army, I think
Yeah,
they're like prime for a comeback, and like, I'm actually like super excited for that. I'm like, oh man, these guys have been so underutilized, and there's like space dwarves and things that they haven't touched in like 30 years. I'm like, I want to see weird stuff like that. Like,
sure.
I think the grimdark future can be way more fun than it is.
Yeah, totally, totally. I think Games Workshop has definitely. I think the community impact has definitely changed a bit of Games Workshop's mentality with that stuff. You can see it in their art that they've been doing for Ninth Ed.
Yeah.
Um, it's Hopefully it makes a comeback. I'm sure it will if people keep pushing it. If all the influencer people keep making weird stuff, that's the hope anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Make the hobby what you want to make it.
So
Yeah.
when you what was the reception like on your channel when you started doing the more philosophical shift? Did like your old fans like reject it, or were you completely embraced? Because sometimes it seems like people have troubles coming along to the new religion when, the creative, as I'm now calling us, the content creation class, because we're doing something that we have to make our own way, and you can't just do the same thing over again, because mentally it's going to drain you, and it's the same way of
Mhm.
like music, where it's all the same parts of your brain that are activated. But fans of what, like, I came in and you were only doing terrain, and I only want to watch you do terrain. uh what was that sort of turn like? Were you completely embraced, or did you face any pushback on it?
Um, there's definitely been well, during the tutorial phase, every like change, it's a gradual shift. So it's like there was a lot of um I think about the time when I did that collaboration video with Scott, and I talked about you know, how much I admired him and all that sort of stuff. I started, people really responded to that, I think, at the time. And so I started incorporating that to everything else by, like, at the end of the video, having some point of reflection onto it. Definitely during like that tutorial phase of videos, I had the mentality of like, these are tutorials. I need to get people the answers as soon as possible in the shortest time frame. And then at the end, it's like, well, here's some more reflection. Like you can stop and go on and do it, but then also here's, you know, and that it seemed fine.
Okay, well, I
People
mean that's
liked it.
good to hear because I actually am like extremely nervous about like the next phase of the murder basement, as like the murder basement isn't even a basement anymore. It's in an attic. I'm sorry, I've been lying to everybody. um but I'm starting to realize that people like what I do for certain reasons, and I'm also starting to get pushback on that, which is something
Mm,
that's interesting because like I've never been the type of guy to be like, you know what, I don't like what this guy does, so I'm going to go out of my way to make sure he knows I don't like what he does. Like I've always
yeah.
just been like, do what you do, it's all good, there's room for all of us here. And so I'm starting to like wonder like what the future is, how you navigate like the continued growth and evolution of a channel, because it seems like if you're not careful, you can wind up pretty easily becoming the bad guy in your own narrative that you're trying to trying to keep straight.
Yeah, I guess like I have a firm belief that it's like, make the content that you want to make. That's like hands down, and that's what I follow for every single video. Um, but also it's like you have to keep trying new stuff because you don't just want to become like an echo or a cartoon version of yourself.
Yeah.
But I think everyone has some sort of desire to push themselves further or try new things after you do something for the same amount of time. But I'm not sure everyone wants to make that jump um, as well. So I would just say, you know, do what makes you
Just
happy
do what
and, you
makes you.
know, fuck everyone else, right?
Well, one of the things that only did one episode on it, and it's actually probably the most excited I've been for a new series to start up, and I hope that you had success with that video because I want to see more of your tabletop RPG creation. I've been following Ben Questing Beast for a while. I love the idea of old school D&D. It's not that I don't like 5e. I've recently come to be much more all right with the idea of 5e, mainly because that's what people are playing, and I'll play whatever. I'm not going to be that guy that's just like, no, I don't want to play. I don't want to play the thing that you guys like. Like, no, I fucking want to play.
Yeah.
I want to roll dice. I want to have fun. I want to create a story. But you started working on your own tabletop RPG using the Knave, like skeleton to build your crazy world that chaos happens and you get deformed, and like I'm like as soon as you started saying it, I'm like, it's like my favorite parts of Kingdom Death without the just like crazy and you're dead. But like it's also backed up with like old school D&D ideas of like, this isn't going to be easy either. Chaos is going to happen. You're going to have a good time with it. And I loved it. And I'm so excited for more of that. So what was the reception of that? And what is your philosophy on game creation?
Sure. The reception was awesome. It was, well, at first it was slow. Like I think YouTube didn't really know what to do with it. They're like, what is this?
What is it?
They're like, yeah, the subscribers and stuff, they were really kind about it, and they're like, oh, this sounds awesome, all this. But yeah, for about a week, it just like sat there, not getting any views or anything, and then it just sort of like kept growing and growing and growing. So I think it's one of the higher performing videos on my channel at the moment. And yeah, like I'm totally making more videos in it. But like I only make videos when I have something to say. Like
Sure.
that's the whole point. So um I want uh like I actively work on it. I do updates every Monday, like on my Patreon, and that's sort of like the thing that I do. And all through the week, I'm playtesting. So typically doing at least one or two games with my friends a week whenever we can get together. And so it's like the videos aren't really coming out because it's like, well, it's a genuine experience, you know. It's like
Sure.
I'm playing games and taking on feedback and then working from there. And then I also want the videos to be interesting and engaging. And when you're talking about something that's mostly text based, you have to think a little bit outside of the box because
Right.
it's so easy just to make stuff on the screen and people are like, oh wow, very cool. When you're like, I'm talking about magic, and it's like, well, how do I describe that? I'm not a magician, you know.
Right.
um, yeah. Yeah. So I really want those videos to be engaging for people. So, you know, just doing it organically and taking my time and then trying to be as consistent as possible on Patreon. Yeah.
That's where it's at.
Um,
Okay, because like
but
I keep on like game development is something that I didn't know I was as interested as I am now. Like
sure.
especially since I found OSR, tabletop RPG stuff. I just never thought that there was a place for me. And now that I know that
Hmm.
there's people that want something weirder and crunchier and maybe not lifelong campaigns, stuff that like one shots, the zines, all of that. I'm like the new like buy a cassette tape and in the J fold out, you have a dungeon that you can run, the new records, things that are happening. Like I'm right now more excited to like roll dice and play like a tabletop RPG with friends than I am anything wargaming because
Mm.
I think the true creative spirit is happening right now, and
Hmm.
it feels interesting that, and maybe because COVID has slowed everything down, I'm like getting more of it, and I'm having more time to actually enjoy looking at it. But I'm stoked for the future of people like trying something different and understanding that like role play is not what class you are. Role play is the experience that you're having with your friends, and
Sure.
that is something that is really really special.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think so much of my wanting to do this is just to mostly just an excuse to play with my friends that we don't get to play very often with.
Right.
And D&D is I find a hard game to run over Discord. Um, and it works for some people, but I think it also depends on who you're playing with as well. So it's just, yeah, I wanted to fill that sort of need for my friends and then share the progress with it in case someone else enjoyed it. It's not like I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a really serious interest. It's like I'm not setting out to necessarily make like the best game or the most balanced game. It's just the game that I want to play with my friends, and
Right.
I hope that people might enjoy it too. Um, and then if people continue to show interest, I'll hopefully publish it as a book and put it out there that people can play. If nothing else, because I'll have my art and stuff in there as well, and fun things that I've come up with that they can adapt to their systems or something.
Sure. Are you thinking about doing something like roll not drive through RPG, or are you thinking like taking it to a Kickstarter?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, there's certainly that Kickstarter culture, right? And that sort of seems like the go-to. Um, but I don't know. It sort of depends on how well I can finance it myself. So um, yeah, I would love to do like a Kickstarter or something like that, and then be able to unlock fun things and do weird stuff if that was a possibility. But at the end of the day, I just want the books in people's hands. Like if it comes to that.
Sure,
I always
sure.
want a physical thing. That's the goal. And same
Well,
with like miniatures and stuff like that. We'll get there.
it seems so weird,
Um,
like You know, like I back way too many Kickstarters, and right now, the end of the year, I've got like Townsfolk Tussle because I love the showdown aspect of Kingdom Death. I think the rest of it is very hit or miss and has ran off all of my friends. Like they don't want to play it anymore. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
totally fine. But like
Yeah.
being able to have something like that is really important to me. And then, like Darkest Dungeon, which is going to be a real crunchy dungeon crawl, of which I love the video game. I love the art aesthetic. I think Angel Heraldez did an amazing job with the painted models.
Yeah.
And I've got the new Hero Quest thing happening as well. And so it's just like, you know, there's like $600 just gone. And it's so frustrating because like I won't get them for a really long time. And then they
Yeah.
keep on unlocking new things that I have to spend money in the campaigns. And it's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
why I don't like backing big games. Like it's so
Yeah.
frustrating. I want to be able to buy it, and I want to buy it now when I want to have all the
Sure.
stuff, and I don't like my emotions being played with. And so like Kickstarter is such
Sure.
a messed up place to be. But you're right. It's the only place where anybody's getting any traction or visibility
Yeah,
at the
because
moment.
it's its own advertising as well. So that's the other big thing. And you know, I think on drive through is also like a rubbish website as well. That's why I don't use it for any of my stuff.
Right.
But like I also on there, you're also having to like try to climb through all the crud to get through the cream at the top if you're trying to publish there as well. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I don't know, but I understand the whole Kickstarter thing. Also, like, I understand a lot of the criticism to it as well. But I mean, the whole thing started as like a way for people to fund and create ideas. But now I think it's sort of turned into like, we don't want to put our own money in there. Our product's done. But, you know, that
But
sort of thing.
I mean, I have backed Kickstarters that are like, we're going to do this one thing. We're going to deliver in 6 months and it's going to be great. And then you realize that they didn't even have any of the things done by the time that the Kickstarter was over. So I appreciate the people who like, we really just don't want to put our own money into it
Sure.
because literally we don't have the money, you know, we need $70,000. And who has
Yeah.
$70,000? Banks here in the States still don't like backing small businesses. Like my my picture frame shop, we are 50 years old. We have a history of paying our bills on time, a lot of it. And I was like, we're thinking about getting a new mat cutter, and we would like to own it this time instead of lease it. It's $20,000 that I don't have. And the bank was like, we're not going to give you 20,000. I was like,
Sure.
look at my bank account. Look, I've been doing this with you for forever. Why won't you loan me the money? And they're just like, you know, we're just not doing that with small businesses anymore. I'm like, how is anybody supposed to grow? Like, how are we supposed to get to their next stage?
Yeah. I mean, like, I certainly couldn't put something out on Kickstarter that wasn't done.
Yeah.
Like but that's just knowing myself. Like, and also knowing what happens to people that when things fail too.
Oh
You
my
have a
God,
reputation
yeah.
to uphold. But yeah, I totally get it. But I think there's so much. There's like a lot of expectation around like turnaround times, the things like stretch goals and all that sort of stuff. The truth is that you know so much of this stuff has so much development behind it, and things go wrong all the time, and money's short a lot of the time. Like I think you know you got to cut a lot of these Kickstarter people some slack sometimes. I think, but
I mean, I
like
think,
as a creator,
yeah.
yeah. Sorry, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that we need to cut people on the internet a lot more slack, just in general. Not just people trying to do things, but
Sure.
like we are highly critical of anybody doing literally anything online right now.
Yeah, yeah. And like as a creator, I'm totally like an instant person. Like I release videos when they're done. Like as soon as they're done, I release them. Even if like they're a few days apart, it's like, you know, I can't wait a week. It's like they needs to be out. I want to move on to the next thing. I want to be excited about it now. It's the same thing. And that's the same with like the digital stuff that I've been making. But physical prints are exciting and they're fun and they're cool to hold and flick through a cherish and show to people and gather around a table and you know
Yeah.
wonder. That's,
Have you seen it's coming out of Sweden. It's called Night Yeast. Did you get a chance to see that? zine that came out?
No.
No. Okay,
Is it
so
cool?
like it's absolutely amazing. Write it down. Remind me to send you the link. Whatever.
Yeah.
You've got to get your hands on it. They're reprinting the first one, but it is a collection of like one page, OSR RPG stuff, or like light rules, light stuff, dungeons for things like Morkborg, and like,
Mhm.
but it's all printed on a risograph, which
Oh, that's
I'm
cool.
just like looking at this thing, and like I used to have a risograph in high school that it always was breaking down, and I was a teacher's aide, and they were just like, let Heath tear that fucker apart, like let him get covered in ink. And I was like, yes please, like I love getting inside this machine, because it's basically like it makes like a silk screen, and then it prints off
Yeah.
like 1,000 copies of something. It's so
Yeah.
cool. And as the series goes, it deteriorates in quality as like
Yeah.
the
They're
silk.
popular in like zine culture, aren't they?
Yeah,
Is that?
yeah.
Yeah.
And to see something like that, and you're just like looking at it, and like the color collisions are starting to get off, and you're just like,
Hell
oh,
yeah.
this is so good. This is so good. And so, like, when I saw you doing stuff with Nave, I was just like, if he hasn't already seen this stuff, this will keep him inspired for the rest of his life. Like right now,
Yeah.
it's so cool. And they did like 100 copies for the first one, or like 150 copies. It was real small. And
Oh, that's
now
cool.
now they're like, oh shit, we do need to make more of them. So they're reprinting the one. They're doing version 2. So like you're still early on in their creation right now.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I love stuff like that. I love good print. I love good design. It's like, in fact, like I think I've got like here. It's like, oh, I love design books like with nice printing and glossy bits in all the fun places. It's like, oh, it's the best. That's why I collect all this stuff. Yeah,
It,
it's just
We'll
an
never have the
experience.
minimalist lifestyle, man. I'm the same way. I've got so much stuff. I'm like, just I have like a tiny bookshelf next to my monitor that has like all these like, the smaller digest sized like OSR style books, and I'm just like, God, I just want to like, I always want to open them up and look at them, even if I'm not doing anything with them, because they
Sure.
look like nothing else. They look like esoteric, knowledge handed down from previous generations, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, art books and all that sort of stuff have been a recent sort of hobby of mine, just because for making stuff, awesome, and spread them all out. Look at all the ideas. Ah, fantastic. Expensive though, expensive hobby, and I beat everything up. It's like it's gonna get paint on it.
Yeah.
It's not gonna last at all. Oh, hang on, there's another one here. Like, why would you print in this beautiful matte white cardboard when I'm gonna just
Yeah.
destroy it?
Gonna get ink
But these
all
are beautiful
over it.
books too. Yeah. These are these books right here. Fantastic. This is why I started. This is why I started getting into oil paints and all that. They're beautiful books. I don't think they're that expensive, but like, gorgeous. This is probably a little pixel on your side.
It definitely is, but I'm excited. I'll make sure to get a link from you, because like,
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Like, part of what I do on my Twitch channel, live streaming, is I read tarot cards for people when they sub.
Hell yeah.
And
That's
it's so much fun. And I've got like this collection. Got tons of tarot cards like behind me, and the boxes have gotten just
How long does it take?
like 2 seconds.
Yeah, please do mine. That'd be awesome.
Okay. Well then, I'll give you the option the way I do it, because I've got a bunch of decks. I have like, this is a Lovecraftian one that's pretty cool and scary. I have one. This is the magical kitty deck, which is hilarious. It's got cats all over it.
Yeah, nice.
Your classic Rider-Waite Smith style stuff, which is beautiful. And like, I'm getting paint on these all the time now. Like, I'm just like, I'm destroying my collector's items. This is the most coveted one. This is it's called the the true black, and like again, you're talking about people making, going out of their way to make things like these are all like satin finish cards with like spot UV on every card. It's the most premium deck I've ever touched, and I totally got white paint on it the other day.
Oh, the stuff exists to be used, man. It's okay. You got to let it go. The first time's the hardest, but then past that, it's a new favorite.
It's just stuff, man. Like, and if you let your stuff own you, you're never going to have fun with it. So get in it, get dirty. You got that new guitar, wear a weird belt buckle and scratch the fuck out of the back. Yeah. Like, get into it.
It's the same with tools and stuff too. It's like all the tools I use are the ones I enjoy using. So it's like, even if they're rubbish and they're all, handmade, it's like, all right, have the actual equivalent. It's like, nah, I want to use mine.
Well, okay, so like while I'm shuffling, you made like a 2-minute long video or 3-minute long video about your dad's knife and making the perfect knife. And I'm not gonna fucking lie at all. Like, this is not hyperbolic. I about cried. I watched this thing. I felt the sentimentality there, and I understood the need for a simplistic tool. Like, every day I use nothing but razor blades for my job. And so like, I like pull out a fresh razor blade and I start cutting stuff up, and everybody's just like, what are you doing? Like, why don't you have like a big hand thing? I'm like, I don't have time for the hand thing. But when you were talking about like a tool that is designed for a job and it just needs to do this one thing, recreating that, and what this tool meant to you, it was so special. And like what made you decide to share that thing? Because that seems like anti-content. That seems like stuff that like would be at the bottom of the barrel of a YouTube algorithm. They're like, why is he doing this?
It didn't do well.
Oh, that's so sad.
Also, most of the comments were like, oh, you should be using this knife. I'm like, did you what? You missed the point of all this. But I don't know. It's just, I think tools are such a personal thing in our hobby that it's like, not enough people talk about them. And I was actually inspired by, I think it was like Darren Latham's videos talking about sculpting. And he was talking about showing his sculpting tools. And he's like, all our sculpting tools are all personal between sculptors, and they're all unique, and they're all, some of them are handmade or hand ground, or, and that was just like, I've got that. I have to share that, because this video is like, magic to me, hearing some validation.
Right.
I'm not nuts.
Like, seriously, being in a job that is, like we're a 3rd generation picture frame shop. Like, all of the knowledge is passed down from like the 1940s when picture framing first entered my business partner's family. All of the tools in the basement. We've got this old like guillotine chopper that does 45-degree angles, and it is there's no safety devices on it. Like, go ahead and chop a finger off. It does not care. It will happen if you don't respect the tool. And finding parts for it is a nightmare. But it's like, it's beautiful, and it's got this patina on it. It's like, I love using that thing, even though it is literally the scariest thing that I do on a weekly basis.
Sure. It's something to respect, right? I guess I think when like most of my hobby, growing up, like I was always using those fixed blade knives. So it's like, that's what I was comfortable using. And that's like, you want to know your tool's limits. You want to know exactly how far you can push things, how stupid you can get using it for things that they're not meant to be used
right?
for. And I think that's all part of the hobby. And I think when you're a part of the hobby, everyone gets a little bit like that, and for better or worse, But I don't know.
I feel it.
Yeah.
All right, so I went with the true black tarot because I this guy, if you go to his his Instagram page, he paints Tyranids. And the black edges, he makes them like even more premium with his airbrush. So like when he gets them from the factory sealed, he goes through and he sprays the side to, like, if you could see him, it's almost like it's a gilded black. It like,
Yeah.
there, and so like for an $80 tarot deck, which to me is like insane, I would never have bought it if it wasn't for a gift from a friend. Once I did the research on it, and I was like, oh my God, this is a labor of love. This guy is into it. And then like the tie into the miniature hobby, I was just like, I messaged him. He never messaged me back. I hope someday I get to connect with him, because like I respect the hell out of someone who's done this much work to make something that like 100 people in the world are going to like really truly appreciate.
Wow, that's lovely.
So the way I normally do it is like, you know, I do a 3-card reading, and we can either focus on something that you want to think about. Like I treat it like a meditation. Like these are just pieces of paper, you know, pulped up from a tree. Like there's nothing truly magical and or like holding any weight or gravity in them. So when people get weird about it, I'm like, don't. Half of these are printed in China. You can't tell me that a mass-produced piece of paper can scare you, because like there are thousands of these. But if you want to like think about something and focus on like an aspect of your life that maybe you would like to see a different frame of light on, that's a great way to do it. Or we could do just a standard general reading. It's up to you.
I would love a general standard reading, please.
You got it. You got it. Got it. Oh man, I'm gonna have to turn on a light. It's gonna get weird. Hold on.
Okay. I can see everything.
Yeah. All right. So we start off. We have the 7 of coins, which is actually one of my favorite cards, because the 7 of coins is what you see here on the left is like a piece of paper. You have like a scale on the right, and like the stacks of money. Like coins, pentacles, they're all about financial reward, and like your efforts. This is a card about displaying your efforts and understanding the value in them. So for you, I think that this is a good one, because this is one of my favorite cards to think about, that it's all right to be happy with the stuff that you've done, and be all right if you are being financially compensated, to be like you know, happy that you are like and proud of it, and instead of being like one of those things like, I'm the starving artist, so you know, like I have to suffer for my work. No, it's all right. It's all right to put your wares on display, and I think you do that in such a great way. So I think that's a cool card to pull for the first one. Got the page of cups. The page of cups is built all around the idea of the cup runneth over, your emotions, they're full. The page is like the first step of the court class. And so the court cards are, you know, like maybe you're not as emotionally stable as like the king or queen, but like you're there, you're on a path, and you know, so it's kind of like maybe a little bit more turmoil, but it's also like more rewarding because you're still learning it. It's still you're at the beginning of the path. So I think that that's a pretty cool one to follow up with.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Then we're at the King of Cups. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Being in the same spot, look at your court cards. You know, you have from beginning to like a person that is like in balance and is in floating. They're like able to you know, live in their spot and own it. I think that's a pretty fun reading, because like I don't ever look at these readings as like I pulled them in an order. Cosmically, it means that you have to look them at this way. I think that I like to look at them holistically. The idea that as you know, your ups and downs hit, you're learning it, you're going, like always be focusing on your work and being proud of it, because at the end you do get to enjoy it, get to have like the sense of accomplishment. You are able to do these things, and you shouldn't ever apologize about that path. You shouldn't ever feel like you're doing it wrong, because that would be a betrayal of the creative spirit.
Oh, that's bloody lovely. Thank you. Oh, that was awesome. I've never had my tarot read before, so that's awesome.
Well,
thank you.
You're very welcome. You're the first person I've done that with on an interview, so
awesome.
that felt really fun. When I quit
you.
drinking, I needed to find some sort of spiritual tie to make me feel all right with this world. I had been self-medicating for a really long time, like an extraordinary long time. And so I went into tarot cards because it gave me something to meditate on, because I couldn't shut this off. Like, I used to drink to numb this, and tarot cards gave me ways to look at like my trauma, the stuff that I was hiding, and think about them differently. Like I think that there's a therapy called EMDR, where it's like lights going back and forth, and like you talk with your therapist about like reconstructing how you look at your trauma. And that's what tarot cards were for me. They were my meditation to reconstruct how I look at my trauma. And while some people take it way too seriously, and it kind of takes the fun out of it, like I found myself in this like really cozy place now that like I can share it with people. I think it's fun. Sometimes it hits really close to home for people, and I've had messages after like I've got off Twitch that's been like, I was crying by the end of that, and I'm like, I'm really sorry, and they're like, no, it was beautiful. And then I've also had people be like, you were way off base, and like, they're just fucking cards.
Sure. Well, that was lovely. That was really good and super fun too. Yeah. Well, thank you.
I've thought a lot about game design and using tarot cards for game design, because like the artwork is so cool. And if you can tell a story with, picture art cards and also play into like a tabletop RPG world, I haven't found the mechanic to make it work yet, but like, thinking about it. For
sure. Yeah. I hope you explore that. That's great. Cards are so underutilized in RPG games. Like, they pop up, and but I'm actually working on a deck of cards for RPGs at the moment, like that you could use for like a regular deck of playing cards. It could be a deck of many things or anything like that.
Sure.
Other RPG systems use it for dungeon creation and all that. Most of my games, they pop up at least once. So I thought, I've got to make a deck of cards, and I found a wonderful artist that's doing the art for me at the moment. But I've got to have a deck of cards that feels like it would fit in a fantasy place.
Right?
It's going to have some sort of life to it. So my concept for it is that it's a regular deck of cards, but over time, it's been like magically manipulated as like wizards and stuff play tricks on each other through like poker and all that sort of stuff. So there might be mismatched backs or fronts or
awesome
suits that don't exist, and like an odd tarot card or something that doesn't belong, or like a deck of or like a rules for a game or something that doesn't exist, or advertising cards for odd shops. So we've been working on that, and I'm super excited about it. So
dude,
I haven't mentioned it anywhere else. So
that's awesome.
The art is fantastic.
That's awesome.
I love it so much. I'm so excited. And all the art is very like inspired by the Nurgle conversion stuff. So that was like the mood board that we put together. So it's very weird, but it's sort of fun too. So stay tuned for that.
Dude,
exclusive.
I'm so excited. That to me is thrilling, because I love cards. I love playing cards. Ever since I was a little kid, I was not a card shark, but I was not afraid to gamble. And I remember being like 6 years old and like walking away from my uncles with like $20 in my pocket, because like I actually could play the games. So like I was like way into it, and so deck of cards has been like, I mean, in my denim jacket, I always have a deck of cards, and I just shuffle all the time. Like I had a small stint of close-up card magic, another thing that when your brain can't stop doing, you're just like, what am I going to do with this? I'm going to learn how to do a double lift. Fuck it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, when they're done, I'll send you one.
Oh,
That'd be
dude,
lovely.
I would absolutely love it. That would be so cool.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
come right to the end of our hour, and I know it's late there for you, so I don't want to keep you too long. And I also have to use the restroom. It's one of those weird things, the human body gets in the way.
Sure.
One of my favorite things that I like to ask people as we leave is like another kind of future meditation thing, and I have the history of sales in my background. We always have dumbass acronyms for everything. And so I always ask everybody, like, what's your BHAG? What is your big, hairy, audacious goal? Money and time isn't a thing. Trent, what do you want to do?
Um, Ideally, clubs have been like wargaming tabletop clubs have been a massive part of my growing up. Like I grew up in these club scenes, and everyone was fantastic at nurturing my hobby. So um, later on, my goal is to be able to create like some sort of charitable organization that can help kickstart clubs, because we found it very difficult opening ours with no money. So
Yeah,
if there's a way that we can kickstart clubs in small rural areas and stuff like that, that'd be the goal. So uh,
that's
one day.
amazing. Like, I'm used to like I just want to have a good time. I just want to chill. That's like a really amazing goal to set, and something that I think like is actually very doable, especially, as we, manifest our ideas into the ether. Like
Sure.
you've planted a seed in someone's head, and it's something that I think is totally necessary, even in big cities. Sometimes like the scene collapses, a store closes, there's a rift in a group, and everybody's left kind of scattered. I have often thought about like how do we get a place where people can comfortably play, safely play, like even store their armies and stuff, because they get
Yeah.
big and they get hard, and you need to have a place where you can hobby and play at the same time. So like I have
Yeah.
felt that like that need so much, even here in like kind of the heart of the United States, game culture. St. Louis we have so many game companies here, but they're all just so fragmented, and it's like one or two guys. They're really small, so it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll get there, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Trent, thank you so much for joining me today. Miscast is
Thank you.
it's a gem. It's anytime you post a video, it's the first one I watch. Thrilled to be able to go on this path with you, and thank you for being honest and open. It's you actually feel like you're getting to know you as these things go, instead of a character that you're putting on airs for TV. So thank you for giving that.
My pleasure. Thank you for talking to me.
Excellent.
Have
man.
a good night.
Yeah, you
I'll
too.
probably sleep or something. Okay.
All right, buddy.
I've never been very good at goodbyes, so you're gonna have to.
But no, give me one of your patented byes, because that's the most adorable thing. Bye.
All right, bye.
I love
it. I
it.
come back. So I'll just tell you something I forgot. Yeah. Okay.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for making it through another episode of Hobby Time in the Murder Basement. I really appreciate your support. If you'd like to continue the support in other ways, I do have a Patreon. The link is down below. Proceeds from that will go to pay for new equipment, subscription fees if I need it, and graphic design stuff. I'd like to help build this channel. So any of your support is, while never necessary, is always appreciated. If you want to see more hobby stuff, you can head on over to Twitch. I generally stream on Sundays at noon. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.